Access 2016, Module 1, Part 3. We're going to be looking at creating a simple query using the Simple Query Wizard. You should have already created the Riverview database, so you need to have that open. Within the Riverview database, you should have created the visit table, and we should have 75 records in it. We have already done a copy and paste append to get records from another database. And now we're going to look at other objects that we can add to our database. So a query can be created to look at a subset of the information in our table or combine multiple tables, which we will do later on in later modules. This first query that we work with, the Simple Query Wizard, we're going to simply look at a subset of the fields. So we're still going to look at all of the records, but we're not going to capture all of the information on our query. Okay, so we're going to start out on the Create tab. Now you'll notice on the Create tab we have the ability to create tables, create queries, forms, and reports. We won't be using macros within Access. So we're going to start out creating a query. You're either going to use Query Design or a Query Wizard. We will use both during the course of this semester. So we're going to start out with Query Wizard for this one. And you'll notice there are 4 queries. And you're going to hear me say several times throughout the series of videos that if you can memorize these 4 names, then if it doesn't specifically ask you to create one of these wizards by name, then you should not use the wizard and you should create it in Query Design. If you are expected to use a wizard for an exam or homework, it will be worded exactly as create a simple query. So if they say simple query, they're not trying to tell you that it's easy. They're trying to tell you to use the Simple Query Wizard. So we're going to start out with that one and say OK. The next thing we have to do is choose the source of the data for our query. Since we only have one table within our database, that has to be the source. You're going to see as we progress through the semester that you can use other tables. You can also use queries as the source to create another query. So we're going to start out by saying it the visit table. And the next thing we want to do is select the fields that we want to see. When we're selecting fields, the double arrow pointing to the selected fields will allow you to select all of them. Pointing the other way will remove them. If you wanted to do one field, you're going to click the top arrow with a single arrow, Visit ID. And then if I chose Animal ID and realized I did not want it, I can simply remove it back out with this single arrow. So now we're going to choose the visit date and the reason. We're not going to choose these last 2 fields. So next we're going to choose the Next button. Now I have a rule that will help you with your SAM homework and your SAM exam, and that's if Next is a valid option, you should not ever choose Finish. If you always choose Next until Finish is your only option, then you will make sure you have properly answered all of the questions. So we're going to click Next, and now it wants us to name it or give it a title. Now you'll notice if I had clicked Finish before, then it would have named it Visit Query. But instead, what I want it to name it is List. So if you had clicked Finish too soon on an exam, that would have been marked wrong because the title was not correct. So after we clicked or change the name to List, we can click Finish. And now you'll notice that we have only the 3 fields listed that we picked. We will learn later on how to put criteria into our queries to make them even more useful. So for example, if I wanted to see all of the appointments in December, then I could do a query to select only December visits. So we'll look at how we can do that a little bit later. Notice you do still have the ability to navigate using our navigational arrows, just like we did with tables. And if we were to spot a visit that maybe had a typing error in it, we could correct that typing error on the query, and that would also update the data in the table. Let's go ahead and close this query. So we're going to click the X. When you create an object using a wizard, it saves it for you automatically. What you're going to see as we do some of our additional objects in the next segments, you're going to see that if you do not use a wizard, then you have to save the object after you create it and give it a name before it will show up in your object pane. So you can see on our object pane now, we have 2 different types of objects. We have our tables listed as visit. We have queries. We have the one called list. And notice they give you a different visual picture so that you can identify them that way as well. Okay, since we have saved all of the objects, we would not have to save the database if we were done, because once the objects are saved, then everything is saved in that database. So the next segment of our videos is going to be create a simple form. And this concludes working with the Simple Query Wizard.